Welcome to Scriptural Science, a presentation of Truth and Life Institute, Boston, Massachusetts, and Oba, Nigeria. The following is a subsection of the book. Life is a Journey in God Through God, written and published by Ifeanyi Chukwujima, scriptural scientist and a servant of God. This subsection's ID is Journey in God, Book 1:2. The Science of Truth, Part 2. The goal of law is love. And the goal of law is love, which comes from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. 1 Timothy 1 verse 5. God requires all human beings to be faithful. Jeremiah 7 verse 23, as God himself is faithful. 1 Corinthians 1 verse 9, Deuteronomy 7 verse 9, Deuteronomy 32 verse 4, etc. Faithfulness to the law is the scientific precision that is required by God from all created things and not just from human beings. God is not commanding human beings in the Bible to do anything that all the other created things are not already doing. Figure 1. All truth is God, who is law and science meshed into one, making God all knowledge, because knowledge is certifiable information about the truth. Aside from God, there is nothing to know, because nothing exists outside of God. When the law is approached through the science of the truth of God, justice, equity, and power emerge. The revolution of the Earth around the Sun every 365.25 days, the rotation of the Earth on its axis every 24 hours, the oscillation of the Earth from north to south and south back to north, which gives us the seasons, the rotation of the universe before God, which completes one round in 1,000 Earth years, and so on, are all faithfulness of created things to the law on which God created all things. Jeremiah 33 verses 25 to 26, laws of heaven and earth, and covenant with day and night. Psalm 148 verses 1 to 6 KJV, he hath made a decree which shall not pass, etc. Therefore, the commands of God in the Bible, which demand that all human beings faithfully comply with the law of God, must be obeyed by every human being, the same exact way the earth, the universe, the sun, the moon, the trees, and all the other created things obey the law of God. The science of life is exact, and only strict adherence to God's carefully mapped out commands in the Bible can successfully get anyone through the science of life. Law is designed by God to maintain order and harmony in all of God's creations. A breach in any one place in the seams of creation causes breaches in countless other places in God's platform of creation, which is the universal space that is shared by all of God's creations, our current-day space. God gave his law in the Bible to mankind to keep human beings from meaningless talk, 1 Timothy 1 verse 6, and from wickedness against one another, Job 35 verses 5 to 8. And to keep mankind from wandering off into destructive intellectual enterprises, which create arguments, instead of advancing God's work through faith, 1 Timothy 1 verse 6. God did not design law to work the way human societies are using law today. God did not design law to work the way human societies are using law today. If you can outsmart the system, then you are free, even when you are guilty, Isaiah 59 verse 4. The world's legal systems allow criminals to be set free if their lawyers can argue them out of conviction. That is perverting justice, Isaiah 59 verse 14. God designed law to be followed with scientific precision and exactness in all instances, Deuteronomy 28 verses 1 to 68. That is justice. Anyone who lives in truth stays humble and passionately seeks justice. Anyone who has the truth stays humble, Matthew 19 verse 17, and passionately seeks justice, Psalm 45 verse 4 NIV. And the only way to have the truth is to painstakingly execute the commands of God in the Bible, that is, to do nothing on our own, but speak just what the Father has taught us, John 8 verse 29, so that we can always do what pleases God, John 8:29, as Jesus Christ always does. So Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, Then you will know that I am He, and that I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father has taught me. 29 The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases Him. John 8 verses 28 to 29. The only time justice is served in society is when the law of God is followed with scientific precision and exactness. The goal of law is love, 1 Timothy 1 verse 5. And the goal of truth is justice, Psalm 119 verse 138, from the 1599 Geneva Bible. Thou hast commanded justice by thy testimonies and truth especially. That is the reason why courts around the world spend so much time, energy, and resources to figure out the truth and get a conviction or acquittal so that justice can be served. There is no love in injustice. But justice promotes love, peace, and unity, all of which all human beings are commanded to single-mindedly pursue in Ephesians 4 verses 2 to 3. The commands of God in the Bible are scientifically formulated by God to ensure that justice is served in all human societies throughout the world. That is why the Bible commands all human beings as follows. Pay all of them their dues, taxes to whom taxes are due, revenue to whom revenue is due, respect to whom respect is due, honor to whom honor is due. 8 Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves his neighbor has fulfilled the law. 9 The commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not kill, you shall not steal, you shall not covet, and any other commandment, are summed up in this sentence, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. 10 Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfilling of the law. Romans 13 verses 7 to 10 RSVC. Since the goal of law is love, the goal of science is also love, because both law and science make up the truth. Since the goal of law is love, 1 Timothy 1 verse 5, the goal of science is also love, because both law and science make up the truth, and science is a systematic and consistent approach to staying within the law. A systematic and consistent approach to love has to be love. Otherwise, it would never lead to love. James 3 verses 11 to 12. Why then is human science antagonistic to love? Because human science has been channeled towards profit and intimidation. Human science works exclusively to promote government's military and wealth objectives at the cost of love. Love never rules by fear and intimidation. Since law is good, science, which is the proper way to stay within the law, is also good. Figure 2. Jesus Christ is the mystery of God, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. Colossians 2 verses 2 to 3. Since law is good, Romans 7 verse 12, science, the proper way to stay within the law, 1 Timothy 1 verse 8, is also good. The Bible says that purity and deception/contamination cannot both come from the same source. James 3 verses 11 to 12. Science, therefore, derives its goodness from the law of God, which is the foundation of science. 1 Timothy 1 verse 8, making any science that is opposed to God, antichrist, and anti-love, and a rogue to science, which is the truth of God. Field of truth. The collective human understandings of any truth of life make up the field of truth as shown in the diagrams below, but not the truth, because God is the truth. And the collective human understanding does not constitute God. Mankind has come to view truth as relative because truth, to mankind, has become synonymous with dominant perceptions and physical realities. Everybody's perceptions comes from the realities in their own life. That is in great error. No human perception is the same as the truth. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 11. All truths come from God, who is the truth. Therefore, all human understandings are relative to the truth, who is God. See the diagram below. Figure 3. All human realities fall into some common concentric spheres of perception in the field of truth. Every human being knows the truth to the extent that they know God. Every human person knows the truth to the extent that they know God. 1 John 4 verses 5 to 6. Human realities are relative truths because of the overwhelming impact which human realities have on the lives of those who live the realities. That has caused human beings to look at truth not as the finite point and finite direction that truth is singular, but as a derivative of human logic. The God who created us knows the limitations of our mind. So, he had broadened the spectrum of truth to include what we, in faith, hold as true, making truth a field of concentric spheres containing all human realities, with the real truth in its center. See the diagram below. God takes everybody's realities into consideration when he sits in judgment of each human being. God takes everybody's realities into consideration when he sits in judgment of each human being. Luke 12, verse 48 RSC. Everyone to whom much is given, of him will much be required. And of him to whom men commit much, they will demand the more. God judges intent and overlooks excusable ignorance. When you do not know because you truly have no way of knowing, that is excusable ignorance. This is the reason why whoever bullies their way into other people's life puts themselves on the stand before God to answer for the shortcomings of the people they dominate. Ecclesiastes 4 verse 1 and Luke 12 verse 48 RSC. And of him to whom men commit much they will demand the more. That is also the reason why God shows no mercy when he judges occupying powers. Joel 3 verse 2, I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. There I will put them on trial for what they did to my inheritance, my people Israel, because they scattered my people among the nations and divided up my land. The illustrations in the preceding diagram show different human realities as they are seen by those who are living the realities. And unless you look at any reality from the perspective of those living in the reality, you will not see what they see. It will therefore be wrong to tell anyone that they do not know what they are talking about, unless you are viewing their realities from the same vantage point as they are. Otherwise, you are the one who do not know what you are talking about. It is humanly impossible for anybody to know everybody's realities. God relates to different people in different ways. The way he relates to anyone is his call, and not anybody else's. What you have come to accept as true is not necessarily the truth of God, unless you approach that truth from God's vantage point, as written in the Bible. That is the reason why the Bible tells you never to lean on your own understanding or judge. John 7 verse 24 and Matthew 7 verse 1. Rather, to trust in the Lord with all your heart and in all your ways to submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 3 verses 5 to 6. Field of vision. A human person's field of vision is the lens through which the person looks at any truth. See below. Figure 4. Fields of vision. Every human person sees the truth from the vantage point of the realities in their life. That is their field of vision with respect to that truth. Distortions in a person's field of vision greatly affect the person's understanding of the truth. Our realities are often our truths, wrong or right. That is why it is said that perception is as strong as the truth. This is, however, only true in the way perception shapes human reactions to life's situations. Truth is never affected by human perceptions because truth is unchangeable. The field of vision consists of factors such as environment, biases and prejudice and other distortions, spirituality, culture, education, etc. The more the factors that make up a person's field of vision, the more the distortions in the person's field of vision. While some of the factors help shape the final picture that emerges, some become a liability that take away from the final image that emerges. The larger anyone's field of vision gets, the larger the distortions in their field of vision becomes. It is distortion of perceptions that keeps human beings from trusting God and living in accordance with the commands of God in the Bible. That many who are opposed to God and the Bible are highly educated demonstrates that only an education that is based on truth can minimize distortions. It is, therefore, distortion and not education that is the human person's biggest obstacle to understanding the truth. Knowledge dispels ignorance, but knowledge also introduces more distortions in a person's field of vision, and so may become a stumbling block for many who are learned. Spirituality is the greatest weapon against distortions in anyone's field of vision. Knowledge must be filtered through humility and shaped by the human spirit, for knowledge to have minimal distortions. Figure 5. A human person's depth of perception is the measure of the closeness of their understanding to the truth of God in any given issue of life. The limit equation below shows the relationship between all human understanding and the truth of God in all matters of life. Here is what the limit equation is saying: a human person's understanding of any matter approaches the truth of God on the matter as the person's depth of perception, as a function of wisdom, knowledge of the matter, and the distortions in their field of vision, approaches the wisdom of God. Infinity understanding. In other words, no human perception ever becomes one and the same as the absolute truth of God, because no human person has God's level of wisdom. However, the more any human person trusts every word of God in the Bible and closely lives according to the commands of God in the Bible, the closer the person's understanding of the truth comes to the absolute truth of God. That is a human person's reward from God for their humility and their compliance to the commands of God in the Bible. What a person understands from whatever they perceive, see, hear, taste, smell, or feel in any aspect of life is their reality in that aspect of life. Everybody's reality is shaped by their spirituality, their knowledge, their wisdom, and the level of distortions in their field of vision. And a person's reality is shaped by their spirituality, their knowledge, their wisdom, and the level of distortions in their field of vision through which they form the perceptions. No human person's understanding of the truth is the same as the truth of God. Knowledge that is acquired in humility with good intentions moves a person's relative truth closer to the truth. For who knows a person's thoughts except their own spirit within them? In the same way, no one knows the thoughts of God except the Spirit of God. 1 Corinthians 2 verse 11. Here is the limit equation. Figure 6. As a person's depth of perception significantly increases, their understanding of the truth significantly comes closer to the absolute truth of God. Figure 7. Education must be shaped by the human spirit through the wisdom that only comes from God, for education to make the learned humble. Otherwise, education will make the learned arrogant and vain. Education must be grounded in humility and shaped by the wisdom that only comes from God, in order for knowledge to minimize the distortions that come from biases and prejudice. Otherwise, knowledge can become more destructive in the educated person than ignorance can in the person. There is more of this discussion later in this book, and greater details in my other book, Human Intelligence is Infinitely Advanced Cloud Technology. We are all familiar with the law of the truth for several centuries now because of the Bible. It is the fact that we failed to recognize the commands of God in the Bible as the precision scientific procedures to life, which they are, that made many who are prone to disobedience to wander away from the Bible in pursuit of some superior knowledge that was slated to leave the Bible in the archives of history. But history has proven that ignorance is not a substitute for wisdom. As a matter of fact, everything the world has achieved in the last 2,000 years is because of the Bible, either in mankind's agreement with the Bible or in mankind's rebellion against the Bible. We have all been entertaining ourselves with so many different conjectures and insinuations about God and the Bible because God has allowed us the freedom to do so. The Bible is a living book of the precision science that is life, and would continue to lead the way of knowledge till the end of time. The Bible was not designed by God for the religious people only. The Bible was designed by God for life and living for all human beings everywhere on the planet Earth. That is why Jesus Christ commanded his apostles, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." 19 Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. 20 And teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. Matthew 28 verses 18 to 20. The Bible is the scientific manual for life and living, a must-have for every human being everywhere in the world, religious or irreligious. righteous or unrighteous, literate or illiterate. The clear and concise scientific procedures for life and living, which are the commands of God in the Bible, were given by God in writing to mankind, not because of the righteous, but for lawbreakers and rebels, the ungodly and sinful, the unholy and irreligious, for those who kill their fathers or mothers, for murderers, 10 for the sexually immoral, for those practicing homosexuality, for slave traders and liars and perjurers, and for whatever else is contrary to the sound doctrine 11 that conforms to the gospel concerning the glory of the blessed God, which he entrusted to Apostle Paul and the other apostles and the prophets of God before Apostle Paul. 1 Timothy 1 verses 9 to 11 NIV.